There's a certain fascination that comes from studying old wartime methods, especially the ones that never made it into the standard field manuals, but still survived in diaries, letters, and the memories of soldiers who improvised through cold nights. Before jumping into the 7 tricks, let's set the stage properly. When you study the survival methods born in the crucible of war, you're not just looking at clever hacks. You're examining a time when people had nothing but knowledge, grit, and whatever scraps they could scavenge. That's why these heating methods still matter today. They don't rely on electricity, complex tools, or modern conveniences. They rely on physics, human ingenuity, and the simple truth that staying warm can mean the difference between life and death. For the next minute, I want you to picture the value of this knowledge not as nostalgia, but as continuity. Every survivalist, historian, or documentary fan understands that history's lessons aren't dead artifacts. They're tools, living, transferable, waiting to be revived. The tricks you're about to learn have kept people alive in frozen forests, bombed-out buildings, and abandoned trenches. And even though many soldiers themselves didn't use these methods, the civilians, irregular fighters, and desperate survivors around them did. What you get today isn't theory or romance. It's functional heating knowledge that still works without power. If you've ever wondered how people endured cold in an era before instant convenience, this is your guide. The trick using clay and dirt as a slow-burning insulator still works in any modern backyard. During the war, rural families across Europe used crude clay-lined fire pits to keep small fires burning safely indoors without constant tending. Soldiers didn't adopt it widely because it took time to prepare, but it's one of the best no-power heating methods you can recreate. When you line a small pit or metal container with compacted clay soil, the insulation forces the fire to burn slowly and consistently. The heat radiates through the clay for hours after the flame goes out. It's as simple as digging a shallow pit, packing the walls with clay-rich dirt, and placing a small wood ember core inside. You can duplicate this same method today with a metal pail in your yard. Build a tiny fire inside, let it heat the clay, and bring the container into a sheltered space. Just never airtight. The clay radiates warmth far longer than the fire itself. The stone cycling heating method used by isolated villagers still produces stored heat for an entire night. This trick wasn't common among soldiers because, well, carrying stones around wasn't exactly practical, but civilians in frigid regions really mastered it. They would heat flat stones in a fire, wrap them in cloth, and cycle them through sleeping spaces. The key is using dense stones, like granite, which retain heat far longer than sandstone. To apply this today, just heat a few hand-sized stones at the edge of a fire, not in direct flame to avoid cracking. Wrap them in thick fabric or a towel, and place them near your feet or core when sleeping outdoors or during a blackout. You can heat several stones in rotation and swap them through the night. It's simple thermal mass technology that still works perfectly. The trench draft heating channel works as well behind a modern home as it did in makeshift hideouts. During World War II, partisans and civilians dug slope channels that pulled cold air in from one end and vented smoke out the other. The heated air naturally rose through the channel, warming underground shelters. Soldiers rarely used this because it required time and digging, but the physics remain efficient. You can recreate a scaled-down version by digging a sloped tunnel leading to a small fire pit a few feet away from your shelter. The warm air travels towards you, while the smoke pulls in the opposite direction. This heating method is still used by primitive skills experts because it gives heat without filling a shelter with smoke. The small flame earthen pot heater still works perfectly with nothing but clay and a wick. People in besieged cities crafted tiny heaters using clay pots, wick material and leftover fats or oils. These weren't battlefield tools, but they were lifesavers indoors. Today, you can recreate the same system using a clay flower pot, a stable metal base, and a wick sunk into cooking oil or even animal fat. As the flame warms the pot radiates heat outward, warming a small area surprisingly well. This is not a huge room heater, but during a blackout, placing your hands near it or setting it under a desk can make a meaningful difference. The coal ember preservation trick can still keep a fire alive overnight without tending. Instead of relighting fires from scratch each morning, people would bury live embers under ash to suffocate oxygen, but preserve heat. Soldiers didn't rely on it widely due to constant movement, but it was common in civilian shelters. To use this today, allow your fire to shrink to glowing coals, then gently cover the embers with a thick layer of cold ash. The next morning, pull back the ash, place dry fuel on top, and blow lightly. The fire restarts instantly. No matches needed. The double blanket heat trapping fold works extremely well with modern materials. This trick was used by families who couldn't spare fuel. Instead of wrapping themselves in one thick blanket, they folded two thinner ones with an air gap between them. That trapped heat dramatically better than a single heavy layer. You know, you can actually apply this today with sleeping bags or thermal blankets by loosely layering them instead of compressing them. The trapped air becomes its own insulation layer. The heated water container method is still one of the most efficient personal heaters. When metal canteens were scarce, civilians used whatever bottles or tins they had, filled them with hot water, wrapped them in cloth, and kept them against their core. It wasn't glamorous, but you know, it was effective. Today, you can use stainless bottles, jars, or thermoses. Heat the water over a small fire or stove, wrap the container, and place it against your torso inside your jacket. Your body warms quickly without burning extra fuel. These aren't relics. They're reminders that the fundamentals of heat haven't changed. If you want more historical-based survival content like this, subscribe to the channel, share the guide with other historians and survivalists, and keep the legacy of real, practical knowledge alive.